Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Office Add-ins Community Call. I am David Chesnut, hosting the call for today. Let's take a look at the agenda and who's presenting. Joining us today are Abid and Prithika, who are going to be sharing some Ribbon API updates. Also, Owner and Camille are joining us to talk about some PowerPoint selection APIs. And finally, Jatin is joining us to talk about add-ins on Appointment Read Surface on Outlook Mobile. Now, as we go along, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat and we'll answer those as we go along or at the end of the call when we get to our Q&A section. If there's any questions we're unable to get to today, we post a blog summary of the call a few days out, and there we post answers to any questions that got missed on today's call. So keep an eye out for that. And just a reminder to folks to please keep your microphones muted as we go along so that we don't have any distractions to the presenters. This call will be recorded and posted to our Microsoft 365 community channel within about 24 hours of this presentation. So with that said, let's get started. Abid and Prithika, do you want to go ahead and start?
Hi, everyone. So today, Abid and I will be going over some API updates to the Ribbon API. So we're going to go over two changes that have been made lately and two updates we've made today. So we're going to be going over the new addition of Enable Disable on two different platforms. And we're also going to discuss contextual tabs. Previously, Enable Disable was already available on Excel, Web, Mac, and Windows, but it is now also available on PowerPoint and Word for Mac and Windows on desktop. And contextual tabs is now fully available for GA on Excel. So with the new addition of Enable Disable to PowerPoint and Word, you can now set up your add-in commands to be enabled or disabled dependent on various circumstances. So at first, you can set the default state of your add-in command to be disabled for an end user to see. So you can specify specific custom buttons or menu items you might have present in your add-in command to be disabled when the add-in is initially opened. You could also change the state of your add-in programmatically throughout different events happening on a user's workbook or other things that are going on by making a call to the office.ribbon request update to change the status dependent on a certain activity or a period of time. And you could also change the state of your add-in command in response to an event. So utilizing an event handler, you could change the status of a custom button, menu item, etc., based off of something that occurs throughout the document or workbook. The ways to go about doing this, in order to change the default state of your add-in command to disabled, you can add an enabled element to the manifest immediately before the action element that's already present there. So for example, here you just add an enabled tag, and in that tag you would add false. And then we can also programmatically change the state, so you can enable or disable your add-in command. So in order to do that, you have to first define a ribbon updater data object, and then you would pass that into the office.ribbon.requestUpdate method. So in order to define your ribbon updater object, you would have some function. So in this example, it's enabling a chart format, but you could have whatever, enabling whatever necessary item in yours. And you first identify the button that you want to enable or disable. And then you go through and you identify the group and the parent as well. And then you add your ribbon updater to the parent tab. So that way it has the whole control and you have direct access to that button. And then when you call the request update method, it'll update the ribbon updater object. And you could also change the state in response to an event. So you would first assign an event handler. It's commonly done with office.onReady, but you can choose to do it however you would like. And then you would implement your enable function similar to the programmatically changing the state. You would have to also make function enable. And then in this situation, it was on activated, you would enable this button, and then on deactivated, you would disable. So there's two functions, and that's how you could use an event handler to use the enable disable functionality. This was already present on Excel Online and desktop for a while, and is now going to be available for public preview on Word and PowerPoint on desktop. And if you would like to see a tutorial, this is a link to the documentation that has step-by-steps on how to do all of these various items through Enable Disable for Word and PowerPoint.
Thanks, Preetika. I'll talk briefly about Contextual Tabs API. So with Contextual Tabs, you can create new tabs and show or hide existing tabs on the ribbon. This functionality was already in preview for Excel on Windows and online. We just finished up development for Mac, so now we have availability across all the different platforms, but do keep in mind that this is only for the Excel application. So I have talked about this in the past, but I'll go through this very quickly to show you what that functionality actually is. So this includes, as you can see, we have some native tabs in the ribbon that often show up based on the context of what the user is doing. So a great example of that is when you have added shapes onto Excel and you click on the shape, you'll see an additional shape format tab show up in the ribbon. So now you can do similar things with your add-in. As you can see in the bottom picture, that you can add your own contextual tabs based on certain context that the user is in into the ribbon as well. So how do you actually do this? It's very similar to Enable Disable. We have two different APIs. The first one you use to actually create and add those custom contextual tabs. So this is all done through the API. You don't need to make any changes to your manifest, so you can avoid any resubmission of your add-in if you're adding this additional new behavior. And then the second API works very similar to the Enable Disable logic in Ribbon API 1.1, and you use that API to either show or hide the status of each of these tabs depending on the context that the user is in. I've added a couple links on the slide as well. We have one directly to the documentation, and the documentation is the same as it was during the preview phase. And then the second link is to a sample that we have showing you how this is actually done inside of your add-in. So that's mostly it. Those are the updates for Ribbon API. We're excited for you to try them out, especially the one that is in preview. So please try out the Enable Disable for Word and PowerPoint and give us any feedback that you have. So that's all for us, and I'll hand it over to the PowerPoint selection APIs.
Thanks, David. So hi, everyone. I'm Camille Birch. I'm a product manager on the PowerPoint team, and I'm very excited to be here with Owner to talk with you all about new selection APIs for slides, shape, and text in PowerPoint. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Owner to take you through some explanation of these APIs and then a cool demo.
Thank you very much, Camille. Good morning, everyone. My name is Owner, and I'm a software engineer in PowerPoint team. And as Camille mentioned, we are going to talk about some selection APIs today. We want to point out some of the new things that we are going to give on this update. We can talk about like the selection information around the slides, where we provide the selection information on the current select slides, or the add-in can set some selected slides. Similarly, that works with shapes as well, getting the list of selected shapes, or setting a set of selected shapes on the slide. And similarly, we will talk about getting the selected text range and setting a specific text range as selected. If I want to go a bit deeper, this is like the full list of APIs here. But for example, we can talk about the primary ones, like coming from the presentation. It has the get selected slides and get selected shapes and get selected text range. On top of that, it has the ability also to set a specific set of slides as selected slides. For this purpose, we had to introduce slide scope collection and shape scope collection. And also for a slide, we have the ability of setting the shape list, or on a text range, we can set it as selected. On top of this, we wanted to provide some additional information, like if you retrieve a text selection from a text range, you can also get its information, like where it starts, how long it goes, and as well as the parent information, like the parent text frame, text shape, or the parent slide on top of these. And the bottom ones are for the shape and slide scope collection information. Given that, I would like to jump to a live demo on these. And let me see if I can share my screen. Here, I created actually an add-in using ScriptLab using some of these APIs. And I would like to do some selection related stuff. So the most basic one, if I just call get selected slides, I will be able to get this actual slide object. And from that, I'm going to output some information on that. The interesting thing about this is you can also select multiple slides like this. And the first item on the on this collection is the active slide that the user sees. And also the order is important here. So I chose like slide 2, 4, and 6, and 6 being on the top of this list, that kept the same order. So if I select 5, 6, and 3, for example, that should also reflect into this order, 5, 6, and 3. I also wrote some hard-coded values to set some specific set of slides. So for example, I'm selecting these 3 slides wherever I am. That's always the case. And to demonstrate the functionality, like we can act on the selected information, like deleting the selected slides as such. Let's undo those. Yep. I added some additional logic here, like saving a slide selection. So for example, I selected slides 4 and 6. I save this selection, for example, I go to another slide, and if I load that slide selection, I come back to the same point on the document. This goes same with the shape selections as well. So if I select a shape, I can get a collection of shapes. And again, the first one is the most active shape. The order is important. And in this one, again, I'm selecting some random shapes here, hard-coded into the code. I can act on the selection, like changing the fill color, or if I like select this object as well, that will also be affected. I can again save the shape selection. For example, I saved the shape on this one, on the slide 2. If I go to slide 5 and load, it will return back to slide 2 with this shape selected. Even it works on the same slide as well. On top of this, let's talk about some shape selection. So if I do something like this, and we can get the selected text range, I'm just outputting some properties of that here. Again, I did some random code, like getting to the 6th slide, getting some substring on a specific shape. And what it does is it just selects that part for me. Again, if I get the selected text range on this, I'm getting the entire text and the other properties as well. So for example, I can change the color on the selected text. If I do something like this, I can also, again, save the selection here and go to another slide and come back with that part selected. Even on the same slide, I can set that selection to proper point. Besides this, I would like to show you some interesting stuff, not too much, but so for example, I created some additional code to create some shapes on this slide. And on this one, I'm going to select some of these shapes and actually arrange them in whatever order I want to arrange them. Or I can like make them like a circle around here, just to illustrate that your add-ins can now interact with the user to actually understand what the user wants to show you. And you can also select some slides and shapes and text to actually guide the user as well. And I also would like to mention that these are now available in beta and preview channels, and you can download or you can access through this link. Given that, we are open for your feedback at any time. Thank you very much for trying these new APIs. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Owner. That is really cool to see all these APIs for PowerPoint coming out. So next up is Jatin. Talk about Outlook Mobile.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jatin, and I'm a PM on the Outlook extensibility team. I'm really excited to be here and talking about what we are currently doing on the Outlook mobile. So just to first give a very quick background. So currently on Outlook mobile, add-ins are supported on 2 key surfaces. The first surface is the global entry point, which is a mail read surface, where on the 3 dots, when you tap on the 3 dots on the overflow menu, you see the add-ins here. And on the other surface is the appointment creation surface, which is specifically for the online meeting partners like Zoom, WebEx, etc. And in terms of the API support, currently we have support for API set requirements at 1.5. And post that, we have been supporting APIs depending upon certain scenarios and use cases. So we're not really following the requirement set approach as of now, and being very scenario specific, which makes more sense on Outlook Mobile. Now, in terms of what we are doing at the moment, we are working on enabling add-ins on the appointment read surface as well. So here in this, you see we're adding a new extension point, mobile log event appointment attendee. And the primary use case is to provide a capability to log or save the details of the event to a third-party application. Some of the potential scenarios that we are thinking about is CRM or note-taking or task management. But it's really up to the add-in developers on what scenarios they want to tap into. And here you see you get a very contextual card here where you can just click on log, and once you click on log, the log button changes to view, and the add-in developers, the add-in can really define how the experience should look like for the user. We support both the UILS as well as task pane add-ins on the surface. So either it could be just a one-tap experience for the user. So the user just taps on log and the event details are saved into the add-in. Or it could be a task pane as well. So when you click on, the user clicks on log, you open a task pane and the user can select which specific place they want to add the details of this event to. This is also almost a semi-contextual entry point, and it's not a global big entry point for all sorts of add-ins. And it's also very easy to discover and have a native UI. And as I mentioned, the state of this changes from log to view once the appointment details have been logged in. So once a user taps on view, then the add-in can open up in a task pane, or for a UILS add-in, you can subscribe to a display dialog and showcase where the details of the event has been stored. Moving on, so in terms of the APIs that we are supporting, so we have the appointment organizers APIs that we are supporting for this scenario. So roaming settings and add-in command surface, display dialog, etc. are supported, and we'll be publishing the details and the list of all of these APIs as well. But essentially, all the methods on the appointment read surface will be supported, apart from the categories, enhanced location, all-day event, recurrent, sensitivity, and series ID. And for auth, the display API, the display dialog APIs will be supported to manage the auth. In terms of the timeline, so currently we are in preview on Android and will be GA by next month. And on iOS, so right now the work is in progress, and we'll share the timelines very soon on by when the iOS will be out as well. But very, very excited to have this functionality, as this was requested by a lot of our partners, and we're looking forward to having you try it out and share some feedback with us on how this adds up to your use cases, and if there are any specific APIs or support that you need from our end on this.
Very cool. Thank you, Jatin. This is awesome to see, because I know there's been a lot of interest in Outlook Mobile. So cool. Let's go on to, I believe we are at the Q&A. So the Q&A, these are the questions that come in on the Office add-ins form that we have, and I'll have a link to that later if you want, so anyone can submit questions that we address in the next community call. The first one I want to talk about, because this is an important one, says that when Microsoft deprecated user voice, there were a large number of great ideas lost, and the replacement Microsoft 365 developer platform ideas currently has new ideas 535, working on it is 2, need more info is 0, and completed equals 2, which is obviously not great stats. Even the most upvoted idea shows no response from Microsoft. What value is there to posting ideas in this forum? Which is a great question, because oftentimes, we're asking folks to go post there if there's something they're asking for, and it's like, oh, we don't have that. This is a great request. Go put it over here. So there's there's a conversation going on in the team right now with the PM team where we're looking into our engagement kind of across the board with community and thinking about how do we want to do that? How do we want to improve it? And so this question is actually super timely because it helps cement this in the context of the developers here that are like, hey, we're going out here and putting stuff up here and not seeing any action. So, and it's important that we meet developers where they're at. So to kind of give the backstory here, unfortunately, we were unable to preserve all of the ideas when we moved from user voice to the new ideas site. We did get a capture of ideas that had more than 100 votes. And so we have those internally for planning. But yeah, it wasn't good that we lost that information. And we definitely need to improve on this for better engagement and transparency into our planning process, because I think it's not super clear to folks like how we're using this information. So that's something we're looking at. And unfortunately, there's nothing to share today, but we're hoping to share an update on this in an upcoming community call, hopefully the next one, once we know with how the conversation goes with the team. There's different ideas, like we've explored the idea of maybe using GitHub for managing these instead. If you have comments or suggestions on what you would want to see change in this space, please let us know in the chat. That'd be good. I can share that with the team. That'd be good, some good feedback to have. So yeah, we hope to share some more details soon, and definitely please understand that we absolutely value suggestions and we take them seriously. They're very useful in our planning. So we're not just building stuff in a vacuum. And thanks for raising this important issue. So again, anything you raise in here, I'll share it with the team, and we'll get back to you in hopefully the next community call. So next question. There are a lot of questions this last month. So there's a link that we provided in our previous call to aka.ms/restcheck. And this is if you need an exemption for your Outlook add-in for using the REST APIs that are going to be decommissioned this November. Somebody let us know that they were getting this message that you don't have permission to view respond to this form. So it turned out there was a permission issue that has been fixed. So if you still need to go ask for that exemption, it should work for you now. Just ping us again if it's not working, but it should be working now. And we apologize that the permissions were incorrect. So it's been fixed. And then question number 3, when can we expect insert worksheets from base 64 to be completely supported for Excel on the web? Because currently Excel on the web doesn't support source worksheets with pivot table, chart, comment, or slicer elements. So unfortunately, right now, we don't have a plan to implement that functionality for Excel on the web. There's a dependency on a feature that we need in Excel on the web that isn't there right now. So that's blocking us from going and fully implementing that API. There is an existing idea request out there. And so one thing that would help us maybe bump the priority on this is if folks upvote that or provide some more comments about the scenarios where they're trying to use these and they're getting blocked, then it makes it easier to address that dependency. And question number 4, I'm trying to use the Shape API, but I'm not able to. So this is on Script Lab when I run there's this sample named Insert Shape, Line, and Text Box. So some things work, some things don't, and I'm able to play with the position, dimensions, and shape type, but I can't change the colors, text, line, weight, and style. Can you confirm whether all of this is supposed to be working? So yes, it is supposed to be working. There was a bug in that sample. So thank you for pointing this out. We went and looked at it. It's like, oh, this isn't working quite right. So we went and did a fix. I have a link to the issue there that also links off to the PR that fixed it. So it should be working. If you're still seeing any issues, just go out to github.com/office-dev/office-js-snippets. That's where all of those snippets are maintained that ScriptLab uses. So if you see something going wrong with the sample, post an issue there and we can follow up and make sure we get it fixed. Oh, real quick before I forget, because somebody asked in the chat, Pawan Kumar Gupta, I believe, there's a question about asking where's the best place to store an access token in the Excel add-in. And the access token is received by a third-party app. So in general, this depends on if you're on the client side or the server side. Like if you're in the client JavaScript, in general, it's a bad practice to be caching access tokens because they're bearer tokens, which means anybody that gets it can go use it with whatever permissions it has. So for example, if you're using SSO, where you call get access token to get the access token from Office, we would say, yeah, don't cache that or store it anywhere. If you need it again, just call get access token again, because Office will cache it for you in a secure way. If you're working with the MSAL libraries, they also have a caching mechanism to cache tokens for you. So you don't have to get into the business of figuring out where to cache things. So in general, that's the answer, unless you're in a scenario where maybe this is more complicated than that, but hopefully that helps. So I guess I would say, yeah, if it's SSO, just use get access token. If you're working with Microsoft authentication libraries, look into their documentation. They have APIs that talk about how they cache it for you. Even on the server side, they'll maintain a cache. Okay, so hopefully that helps. There was a question on Outlook add-ins and the Outlook REST V2D Commission that's coming up in November. We're wondering if it will be extended only to existing customers or to new customers as well. So the answer is it'll be extended to anyone who's requested that exemption, as long as it's before November. After November, then you won't be able to get that extension. So that's why we have that link that I shared earlier to the aka.ms link for Outlook. There are several cases here asked about, and I think the way to answer these is just to say, I was asking Juan about this, and he said the way we track these, because they're all about like, how's this getting tracked? He says the exception is per add-in ID, which is the only way we have to identify if the add-in was used in the past. And my understanding, I need to circle back to Juan one more time, because I was looking at this question, this last bullet point of, is there any difference between registration by sideloading or by centralized deployment? I would think that it needs to either be an app source or centralized deployment to be seen. I don't know that sideloading would allow it to be seen. So that I kind of need to follow up on that to be sure I'm saying the right thing there, because I'm not super familiar with how that part works. So I'll post more information in the post summary blog, and hopefully that'll help. But basically, we're just looking at an add-in ID to track these. And the fundamental thing is you just want to make sure you ask for that exemption at that link that Juan created. I see there's a question too in regards to, I'm looking at the chat, the deprecation of the REST API, replacing that with the use of the Graph API provides a really broken user experience. Okay, and I see there's a link. Okay, I guess I'll have to take a look. Oh, it's a bad link. All right, I'll have to go take a look at that. I'm not really able to jump off and start exploring GitHub links right now. But yeah, if there's a bad experience, we'll take a look at that. We'll see if we can follow up on the next call on that or post in the blog summary. And then question number 6 was about developing an Office.js add-in for Outlook that can encrypt and decrypt emails. So we'd like the compose window to disappear after our encrypt and send button has been clicked, or we need a toggle such that a user can enable or disable encryption, and subsequently our encryption process is done after the user clicks on the send button. Thus, an extended on-send feature, not only for validation purposes. Is one of those two features planned to be implemented anytime soon, or is it wise to consider developing or add-in within VSTO? So the answer here is that you can accomplish this scenario using web add-ins and smart alerts. We recommend that you combine the handling of the send event with event-based add-ins. So for instance, you can encrypt the attachments as they're added on the email while composing, so that your on-send processing takes less time. And there's a link here to a sample that actually does that. It's the Outlook encrypt attachments sample. So hopefully that helps with that question. And there was a question that came in on Microsoft Graph asking why it's not possible to use the mail in MIME format as a payload in the request when trying to create a message within a mail folder. So there's one way you can create it is the /me/mail folder /ID/messages. It looks like only JSON. Well, it is only JSON is accepted there. But if you use me/messages, you can use a MIME format. So I reached out to the Graph team on this, and they let me know, for one thing, the best place to ask Microsoft Graph questions, because we don't typically get into Microsoft Graph that deeply on this call, is go to the aka.ms/askgraph site. But what they told me is that when you're creating a draft email, it's typically created in the drafts folder, and you would do that with the /me/messages. So that's typically when you're going to use MIME format. You can use the post, the longer format there with mail folders /ID/messages to create messages in any folder, although they're always going to be in draft mode if they're not in the drafts folder. And so what they're telling me is that this didn't seem like a likely scenario to support mine, but if there is a need for that, to let them know. So again, you can just go to aka.ms/askgraph and follow up with the Microsoft Graph team. So I hope that helps. And finally, last question, I believe, in Word Desktop with WebView 2, if I rejected the consent for audio video recording for the first time, how can I change it or raise this question again? And a similar question, how can I disable or change the spell check settings in WebView 2 in Word Desktop? So if the consent was rejected by the user, the way to get it to pop up again is you need to clear the Office cache. So there's a link there to how to clear the Office cache for details on that. And the spell check thing, let me know if this is not the answer you're looking for, because I wasn't quite sure if this was asking about WebView spell checking or Word spell checking. They're kind of two different things. But in the WebView, you can control those with your HTML by setting like spell check equals true. But again, just follow up with us if that's not the right scenario you're looking at there. Let's see. Okay, looking at the chat here. In Word, getting the open XML does not return the W14 para ID attribute. For example, one answer was that the W14 namespace is listed in the MC ignorable value. However, that does not mean that it should be ignored by Microsoft Word. Can we solve that issue? Yeah, I'll have to follow up with the team on that one. I'm not super familiar with the deeper parts of OpenXML there, or unless one of the PMs on the call here can answer that. See, in regards to Cody's question, the big issue is that Office.js API allows you to get a REST API token easily since the user is already logged in once your add-in is loaded, but there is no equivalent method to get a Graph API token, and this requires the user to log in a second time to get that token. Oh, I see. So it's like, because you want it to be more like an SSO kind of thing, but it seems like you should be able to use SSO from Outlook if you don't want to have the user sign in twice. I mean, but yeah, you are correct. You do have to use the more the server side flow kind of. It's not the same flow, security auth flow. So I guess it'd be good to know if that's not working for folks, or if it truly is breaking something. And then, is it possible to install add-in from AppSource at the same time when a SaaS application is being installed? It's another one I'd have to ask the PMs on. I'm not quite sure about that one. And you don't need SSO currently with the REST API. Okay, I may not be following that scenario then, but I'll follow up with Juan on the Outlook team and see if we can look into that some more. Are you planning to make the Mail Compose surface available on Outlook Mobile? That'd be a question for Jatin. Oh, on the SSO thing. Okay, I see. So you have to ask the user to log in again. So I see what you're saying, because you're going from an experience where they didn't have to log in, but now they have to. So it's changing the experience, and not necessarily in a good way. Yeah, I'll have to follow up with Juan on that, and that's something he'd have to dig into on how to address that scenario. Is there a possibility to customize the save dialog in Office? That's interesting. This sounds like one of those an idea to let us know how, describe that scenario. What are you trying to do? Maybe go to the Microsoft Ideas site and let us know. All right, so I'm going to move along here to just say if anyone on the call is new to Office add-ins, we have lots of resources to help you get started building Office add-ins. There's a link to the docs here, the aka.ms/office-add-ins-docs. There's also, and on those docs, you can find a series of 5-minute quick starts if you want to start with Excel or Outlook, whichever host you're working with. If you're looking to automate Excel tasks, you can check out Office scripts, and there's a link to those docs there, aka.ms/office-scripts-docs. And there's developer resources available to folks. Definitely, if you don't have it, check out the Microsoft 365 Developer Program, which gives you a free tenant for developing and testing your add-ins. I use it all the time. Script Lab is super handy as well. It's an add-in that you can use to just try out snippets without requiring a full dev environment to play with them. And sometimes it's great for just testing ideas out too. There's the Office add-ins documentation. And to engage with us, if you have technical questions about the Office API, you can go to aka.ms/office-js-dev-questions. And if you have technical questions about developing Office add-ins, there's also aka.ms/office-add-ins-dev-questions. And you can always ask questions on stackoverflow.com. There's a list of tags there that you can use. Our PM team and developers look at all these locations for questions coming in. And also, if there's any bugs, you think you found a bug in the like the API itself or the product platform, let us know on github.com/officedev/office-js. And of course, you can send feature requests and ideas to the M365dev-suggestions alias. And you can always send a smile or frown inside Office. And of course, this isn't the only community call that we have. There's the Microsoft 365 platform call weekly that you can attend. There's a list of calls here that if you're interested in any of these areas, please go check them out. We've got adaptive cards, Microsoft Identity Platform, Power Apps, and more. And you can get a list of all calls and assets at that bottom link there to aka.ms/m365pnp. Thank you, everyone, for attending. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel. You can always follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev, at M365PNP. The next call will be May 11th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. There's a link to the call there. There's also a link to the agenda. I have been working to keep that up to date about a week to 3 days before the call. Kind of depends on how the agenda gets finalized. So I hope that's been useful to folks. And of course, you can submit questions for the Q&A at aka.ms/office-add-ins forum. So thank you again, everyone, and we will see you on the next call.